Hello and welcome to NTD Canada News Election Special Series. I'm your host, Gary Bai. According to Glacier Media, the Chinese Benevolent Association recently hosted a free luncheon for about 100 people at a restaurant for the Liberal candidate for Vancouver East, who was trying to knock out NDP incumbent Jenny Kwan. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau denied wanting Jody Wilson-Raybould to lie as the SNC-Lavalin affair came back into the spotlight on Saturday with the publication of an excerpt of the former Justice Minister's memoir. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole was in Vancouver on Sunday. He promised the Conservatives' fiscal plan would be disciplined but fair, and they were going to balance the budget within a decade. He also claimed to offer more financial support to grieving parents with up to 8 weeks of paid leave after a stillbirth and 3 days following a miscarriage. Trudeau was in La Prairie near Montreal on Sunday. Trudeau told reporters that his federal government would intervene in Quebec's secularism law at a later date. It banned some public servants from wearing religious symbols on the job. On former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould's accusation that Trudeau tried to block the investigation into SNC-Lavalin, Mr. Trudeau said he had no information to share. He also said the RCMP has not contacted him on the SNC-Lavalin group affair. In Sudbury, Ontario on Sunday, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh promised to crack down on corporate loopholes and tax evasion. At a campaign stop in Vancouver, Jagmeet Singh released the details of his party's financial promises on Saturday. The NDP's platform would expand government spending by $214 billion to include pharmacare and dental coverage. In order to cover part of the increase, Singh proposed an additional $166 billion tax. The plan would expand levies on capital gains, corporations, and a wealth tax. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet was at a campaign event in Saint-Louis, Quebec on Sunday, calling to restore Quebec's international image. Maxime Bernier of the People's Party has been in Alberta since Saturday. Bernier continued to campaign for a balanced budget against the vaccine mandate and against COVID restrictions in these rallies. Green Party leader Adam Paul was campaigning in Toronto this weekend. According to Glacier Media, the Vancouver-based Chinese Benevolent Association is a local Chinese community organization known as a voice for the Chinese Communist Party. It has consistently told the Chinese Communist Party line. It recently hosted a free luncheon for about 100 people at a restaurant for the Liberal candidate for Vancouver East, who is trying to knock out NDP incumbent Jenny Kwan. Kwan's riding includes the city's Chinatown. Jenny Kwan did not toe the CCP's line and was vocal in supporting the democracy movement in Hong Kong in the last couple of years. According to some, this might be the reason that the CCP would like to have her defeated in the election, and so that might be the reason the Chinese Benevolent Association is out helping her Liberal opponent. Chinese Benevolent Association President Fred Kwok wrote in his WeChat invitation to the free lunch for the Liberal candidate reads, "The Chinese people must show their voting power in this election. Now that this Liberal candidate is running for the first time in Vancouver East, we, the Chinese people, must show the voting power to the politicians. When the future victory comes, at least there will be a few more MPs who care about the issues of the Chinese people." According to members of the Chinese community, the so-called Chinese people referred to in the letter are really the Chinese Communist Party. Historically, the Chinese Benevolent Association has constantly told the Chinese Communist Party line. For example, the association held a public event prior to the pandemic in September 2019 to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China by the CCP. Over the past 2 years, the association has bought Chinese newspaper ads denouncing the House of Common Vote, declaring the CCP is committing genocide against Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. It has also published ads in support of Hong Kong's CCP-imposed national security law, which criminalizes dissent against the communist regime and has led to the jailing of dozens of democratic politicians, journalists, and students. As reported by the Vancouver Sun, the director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, David Vigneon, found what he calls some of the most paramount concerns. The CCP and Russia, quote, target politicians, political parties, and electoral processes in order to covertly influence Canadian public policy, public opinion, and ultimately undermine our democracy and democratic processes. Furthermore, Richmond Conservative MP Kenny Chiu, who was sanctioned by CCP in March, says there is a concerted effort to spread misinformation about him. We will cover this story tomorrow. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau denied wanting Jody Wilson-Raybould to lie as the SNC-Lavalin affair came back into the spotlight on Saturday with the publication of an excerpt of the former Justice Minister's memoir. The case was also cause for concern during the 2019 election. The excerpt from the tell-all book, Indian in the Cabinet, published in the Globe and Mail, revolves around Wilson-Raybould's recollection of two critical meetings with Trudeau in February 2019. The meeting came just days after the newspaper reported the Justice Minister had faced inappropriate pressure from top Liberals in the court case. That case was the criminal prosecution of Quebec engineering giant SNC-Lavalin Group, which was facing bribery charges related to contracts in Libya. Wilson-Raybould would later testify that the PMO wanted her as Attorney General to intervene for political reasons to stop the prosecution. The full memoir will be released on September 14th. In the excerpt, she says the meetings occurred in Vancouver a few days after the Globe story broke. The Prime Minister at that point was facing pressure after saying that the report was false. Wilson-Raybould said she wanted transparency with Canadians and accountability. She wrote, "He used the line that would later become public, that I had experienced things differently. I knew what he was really asking, what he was saying in that moment. I knew he wanted me to lie, to attest that what had occurred had not occurred. Lie to protect the Crown government acting badly, a political party, a leader who was not taking responsibility." The next day, Wilson-Raybould resigned from the cabinet and was followed by then Health Minister James Philpott, before the two were booted from the Liberal caucus. The affair later led to the resignation of Trudeau's principal secretary, Gerald Butts, and Privy Council clerk Michael Wernick. The allegation resurfaced on the campaign trail on Saturday as Trudeau denied wanting the former Justice Minister to lie.
I did not want her to lie. I would never do that. I would never ask her that. That is simply not true.
Do you understand how your conversation with her may have left her with the impression that you wanted her to lie or mislead people?
No, I don't.
Trudeau has previously refused to apologize for his handling of the affair, including after the Ethics Commissioner found in August 2019 that he violated the Conflict of Interest Act by improperly using his position to pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould to benefit SNC-Lavalin's private interests. Both O'Toole and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh have seized this opportunity as a way to remind Canadians about what they allege is Trudeau's hypocrisy when it comes to his treatment of strong women in cabinet and the government.
Canadians no longer believe Justin Trudeau. He ran on sunny ways, promises, a different style approach to politics, he said. We saw with how he treated Jody Wilson-Raybould, how he put the interests of a corporate entity lobbying about a judicial proceeding ahead of doing the right thing for a cabinet minister. It's a reminder that Mr. Trudeau will say and do anything to win and never has any intention of actually putting Canadians and the needs of the country first.
That's another example of this pattern of behavior that we're seeing from Mr. Trudeau of not being kicking out strong women in his cabinet, whether it was his previous justice minister or whether it was the previous Ms. Philpott, Minister Philpott. We've seen this as a trend, and it's troubling.
And coming up, we have where the leaders are in the polls and how Canadians are voting in the advance poll, and protesters were demonstrating at Trudeau's Montreal office. But please first subscribe if you're new to this channel and turn on that notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. We'll be bringing you election updates from coast to coast in the coming weeks, along with the latest news coverage. Thank you for your support. Now let's get back to our stories. Members of the Iranian and Cuban communities held a rally in front of Trudeau's Montreal office. The rally protested against Trudeau's appeasement policy toward communist and terrorist regimes on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Based on the 338 Canada project, a statistical model of electoral projections based on opinion polls, electoral history of Canadian provinces, and demographic data, Sunday's polls show the Liberals inching past the Conservatives ever so slightly. The Liberals are at 32.2%, while the Conservatives are at 31.9%, both having increased by 4.3%. The New Democrats are in the third with 18.8%, but are slowly sliding back as the Liberals move up. The PPC is also making progress with 6.2%. Finally, the Bloc Québécois are at 6.7% and the Green Party at 3.2% have less support than they did in 2019. According to Elections Canada, it is estimated that 1.3 million advance votes were cast on Friday, September 10th, which was the first day of advance polling. That number is 100,000 more than the first day of advance polling in the last federal election. The hike may reflect voters' health concern over in-person voting on September 20th. Advance polling will close at 9 p.m. on Monday, September 13th. For Canadians who miss advance polling, they can also vote at the local Elections Canada's office before 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 14th, which is the same deadline for registering mail-in ballots. In Canada, both mail-in votes and voting at an Elections Canada's office are categorized as special ballots. By Friday, there were already over 795,000 special ballots issued to voters, compared to just over 481,000 total special ballots issued in the 2019 election. Françoise Incourade, Elections Canada's Atlantic Region Media Advisor, said Elections Canada was expecting more Canadians to vote before September 20th. With that said, thank you for watching NTD Canada News. If you like this video, please give us a like and share. We'll help more people see our channel. We'll be back with more comprehensive election coverage, and we'll see you next time.